Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First graphic we've got is fire danger and restricted north of the Yukon River, mostly there. Out to the Seward Peninsula, very high fire danger in most areas in the shaded area, up to the Brooks Range, some cases spilling onto the North Slope. To some extent, extreme fire danger back along the Yukon River in the upper Yukon Valley there to the Porcupine River, and also areas of extreme fire danger across the northern Koyukuk and southern slopes of the western Brooks Range, northern Kobuk Valley on into the Noatak Valley areas. And of course, fire danger cuts off due to the heavy precipitation that's occurred just to the south of that area across the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country into the Copper River Basin and off to the southwest over the last couple of days. Delta Junction picking up 1.18 inches, for example, in the last 24 hours. Not the heaviest amount that was reported up there, but a known location, so I went ahead and used this one. And Chicken, 1.07, again, 24-hour amounts. And Salsa, about a little over an inch, as well as Paxson, picking up a little over an inch of precipitation, while, say, Fairbanks had about 0.4 of an inch. And from that, or due to the heavy rains or the wet weekend, there's a flood watch out there for the, specifically here, flood watch for the streams and rivers in the Deltana and Tanana Flats area from Little Delta River eastward, and that's out through Wednesday evening. And that's due to several days of receiving 1 to 2 inches of rain per day across that area. And so flooding is possible. It's not imminent, it's not a warning, but it's certainly possible that there could be some flooding during that time frame. From there, taking a look at the rest of the state, there are no watches or warnings. That's the only watch out for all of Alaska. On the satellite imagery, you can see a band of clouds signifying a Arctic front that pushes southward and then kind of slides off to the east with the main push down toward the Bering Strait due to low pressure and northerly winds, upper level low, dropping southward, and northerly winds pushing it into the Bering Strait, producing the southwest flow. And then we have the area of moisture that's brought the just persistent rainfall in across the eastern interior, Tanana Valley, again, Copper River Basin, on up to even the Eagle area there, actually all weekend. And that extends all the way down to the southwest coast. And in between those two areas is where it was sunniest today. Looks like the Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley, out toward the eastern Seward Peninsula area. And a few breaks around northeast Bristol Bay. Low pressure south of Kodiak Island, made for a cloudy day there with any precipitation pretty light and insignificant. And low pressure spread rainfall in over the southern southeast coast today, 1,004 millibar low. They're moving inland, not much of a factor wind-wise. And precipitation not all that significant, anywhere from 1/10 to 3/10 of an inch. And that's about it, and even lighter amounts up to the north. Scattered thunderstorms developing around the interior Alaska Range, but nothing really widespread yet. They're around Eagle, back up toward the Brooks Range, even lightning strikes observed out over the Seward Peninsula. Otherwise, to the south, not a bad day over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta as well as the valley, with a few breaks in the overcast or some sunshine, and also some isolated showers showing up. More shower activity, though, toward the western Alaska Range. Dry Kodiak Island, dry the Alaska Peninsula, and areas of low clouds and fog covering much of the Bering Sea. Weak high pressure resulting in light wind conditions continue in that area, and that includes the Aleutians as well. And also low clouds and fog all the way up until you hit that front and throw some rain in there through the Bering Strait, and areas of rain extending along that frontal boundary, kind of not very continuous, and occurring either side of that frontal boundary. Then it reconsolidates up over the upper Yukon Valley, eastern Brooks Range area. And for tonight, we'll see that system moves off and weakens there over the Panhandle. That's replaced by another weaker trough. That's going to keep it cloudy and occasionally damp over much of the southeast coast through the night tonight. And not much different for the North Gulf Coast. Leftover moisture there, kind of weak southerly flow coming up a building ridge of high pressure over the eastern Pacific, eastern Gulf. That's going to circulate clouds with some light rain and drizzle right on up to the North Gulf Coast. And then that weak low southwest of Kodiak finally spreads some moisture north and then kind of bends it back around to the northwest, making for generally wet and foggy overnight period for southern and eastern Kodiak Island. Rain and showers southern Alaska, and rain continues again over the from the northern Copper River Basin right up into the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country area. And out in the Bering Sea, no change. Low clouds, fog, maybe some areas of drizzle, but light winds, and just expect IFR flying conditions out in that area. And that front keeps rain there around St. Lawrence Island. Then that front continues to push southward, not really strong, but northerly breezes, maybe up to 20 knots or so, will push that moisture right to the Yukon Delta coast. Some of that will spill into the Kuskokwim Bay area. Looks generally cloudy and wet again over much of interior Alaska with periods of rain or showers. And even the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, and the Panhandle, except for the extreme southern southeast coast, may see some breaks, Heidelberg, and possibly Metlakatla with lightest precipitation. Otherwise, no change. Bering Sea, light winds, low clouds, and fog, pretty widespread. And then moisture streaming southward from the Arctic may spread some light rain and drizzle into the Bering Strait and extend back up toward the northwest coast. And there also could be some afternoon clearing or daytime or clear sunshine from the north slope to the Noatak Valley and even the Seward Peninsula. And that's about it anywhere in the state as far as any chance of sunshine goes. And the outlook for Wednesday, not much change. High pressure kind of sharpening up there off the southern southeast coast, and that southerly flow is building a surge of moisture that won't reach Alaska by Wednesday night, but probably later on. But the still southerly flow keeps it unsettled and wet for the North Gulf Coast. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms once again. Possibly Kenai Peninsula, just a slight chance, more likely for the western Alaska Range, up across all of the interior Tanana Valley, staying cloudy, cool, and wet, with showers and a risk of thunderstorms for the Brooks Range. North Slope, not bad, partly sunny, as well as the Seward Peninsula. Afternoon showers for Kodiak Island, otherwise mostly cloudy. Same forecast for the Alaska Peninsula. And not much change for the Bering Sea. Low clouds, fog, maybe throw a few more showers in there, but really kind of a stationary status quo. Lows tonight, upper 20s to lower 30s with the colder air coming southward there for the Arctic coast into the North Slope, and below freezing temperatures all the way down to the north shore of the Seward Peninsula. Upper 30s, St. Lawrence Island, otherwise 40s most everywhere else, with the exception along the Yukon River with lows in the lower to mid 50s. Highs for tomorrow, mostly 60s, barely making 70 for the upper Yukon Valley. 30s, mid 30s for the highs for the Arctic coast, and even the Seward Peninsula, except south side there, may hit 50 possibly for Nome. Lower 60s, south central Alaska. The Panhandle in the 50s, as well as the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, lower to mid 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, and the usual mid to upper 40s for the Aleutians, near 50 for the Pribilofs. That'll be followed by lows Wednesday morning, still below freezing, upper 20s, lower 30s, Arctic coast into the North Slope, lower 30s, Seward Peninsula, call it 34 for Nome, lower 50s once again, upper Yukon Valley. Otherwise, most everywhere else in the state looking at overnight lows in the lower to mid 40s, depending on maybe the higher valleys dropping into the upper 30s, with mid 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. Upper 40s to possibly lower 50s for the Panhandle, lower 40s out in the Aleutians. And highs Wednesday, even Fort Yukon can't quite crack 70, but Chukchitik may, and Beaver could hit lower 70s, but generally kind of cool around.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather Tuesday morning, IFR Eastern Arctic Coast, marginal VFR West Side. VFR along the Yukon River in the interior on down to the Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay area, including Norton Sound, on up to Kivalina. Otherwise, southeast interior, some IFR showing up, especially over the Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast, and up possibly the Talkeetnas and areas of the southeast coast. And as usual, widespread IFR, all of the Aleutians, central western Bering Sea, and a batch extending into the Yukon Delta coast, marginal VFR, St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait. Afternoon, still a narrow band of marginal VFR there from the Point Hope Cape Lisburn area, south through the Bering Strait, Shishmaref to Tin City, Savunga, Gamble, and then IFR. Now improved along the Yukon Delta coast and mostly marginal VFR along the southwest coast to Cape Newenham, Bristol Bay VFR, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, and some marginal VFR lingering along the Alaska Range with VFR over Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, some marginal VFR for the Matanuska Valley, Copper River Basin, improving what you have in the morning, but still some IFR along the Coast Range. And the southern Panhandle, mostly VFR with IFR along the coast. Northern Panhandle, marginal VFR with marginal VFR along the coast. And for Wednesday morning, Eastern Brooks Range up across the eastern North Slope to the coast there, IFR, and a zone of VFR on the North Slope, otherwise marginal for the Arctic coast, south through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, VFR, and marginal VFR along and just off the Yukon Delta coast, IFR extending into southern Kuskokwim Bay to the southwest mountains there, and then all of the southern Bering Sea from the Aleutians down across, from the Pribilofs down across the Aleutians in the IFR zone, and some also IFR over the Panhandle with some marginal VFR in the area of IFR, as you can see along the southern slopes of the central Alaska Range and the eastern slopes of the western range. That disappears in the afternoon, leaving marginal VFR behind. That actually marginal over much of southern Alaska. Interior areas, Yukon Delta, up the valley along the river there, looking good. VFR, some leftover marginal VFR there along the Brooks Range, and even the Arctic coast in the VFR zone, especially on the east side, as well as the North Slope. Marginal for the Panhandle, except Lynn Canal Glacier Bay. Looking IFR, all of the Aleutians, and southern Bering Sea. Passes Anatuvik, IFR, trending toward marginal VFR throughout the day, as well as Adigan, starting out IFR, gradually improving into the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal marginal VFR for rainy and windy as well. Looking at some point in the day to be marginal. Isabel, same forecast. I think Mentasta, though, will be in mostly VFR the entire day. And for Tanita, marginal VFR. With Portage, marginal VFR and a chance of IFR on the eastern entrance throughout the entire day. Chilkoot and White, marginal. Freezing levels showing that cold air pushing southward from into the Chukchi Sea to the Bering Strait, as you can see with 2,000-foot freezing level all the way down to Shishmaref and Tin City, extending back up toward Dead Horse, and then 8,000 feet freezing levels in the central interior, and 6,000 southern Alaska, 6 to 8 over the Panhandle. Icing with the southwest flow increasing with that southward digging trough. Quite an area of potential icing here in the shaded areas over interior Alaska, all the way down the Gulf and the Panhandle. Mostly a mixed variety from the freezing level to around 12,000 feet or so. And the upper level wind flow chart, jet stream, 33,000 foot winds. There's that trough coming southward with pushing that Arctic jet down into the northern Bering Sea across St. Lawrence Island. Southwesterlies at about 70 knots cutting across the Brooks Range. Pacific jet south of the forecast area, but does angle up across Dixon Entrance out of the southwest at 80 knots with a trough off the southeast coast. And 9,000 feet, there's a weak low off the southern southeast coast. Those are the trough I just spoke of, but pretty light winds over interior Alaska, a little breezier with the upper low coming down out of the Arctic. Same pattern, 3,000 feet, light for the most part over interior Alaska, a little breezy over the southern Panhandle, but nothing too significant. And looking at possible light to isolated moderate chop, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay due to mechanical turbulence, as well as the Bering Strait and the White Mountains.
Hello, I'm a GOES-R series weather satellite orbiting 22,000 miles above Earth. I can see a lot of cool stuff from up here, and I take pictures of it with my spiffy camera that has 16 different settings. I have such good eyesight, I can see clouds, snow, smoke, smog, and ash, so I can warn you about dangerous conditions and help you avoid them. When storms are brewing, I watch them closely and help with hurricane, tornado, and flood warnings to help keep you safe. And my lightning mapper tracks lightning strikes way up in the sky, even through dark, dense clouds. I also help with search and rescue missions. I listen for distress signals from emergency beacons and tell search and rescue teams just where to find people who need help. But even when I'm keeping a close eye on Earth, I'm monitoring weather out here in space, too. I watch the sun for big bursts of energy, which send waves of radiation toward Earth that can affect power grids, block communication with planes, cause errors in GPS, and damage satellites. Space weather is also very dangerous for astronauts working outside the International Space Station. I warn them so they can get inside where they'll be safe. So the next time you watch a weather report or check your phone for the forecast, remember, that's me. So look to the sky and wave. I'll be here. Whoa! Things are looking pretty bad down there. But don't worry. I'm going to give weather forecasters a heads up and help you stay safe. I'm a GOES series weather satellite, and one of my jobs is to keep an eye on Earth's weather as I orbit above. But I'm 22,000 miles above Earth. How does your local weather forecaster know what I see all the way up here? First, I have to figure out what's going on. I point my special camera at the Earth and take pictures of the clouds I see below. My pictures show where the clouds are, but I also take lots of other notes about the clouds. For example, how high they reach into the atmosphere, how much rain they might cause, and when a severe storm may be forming. But I can't keep all of this information to myself. I have to share it with weather forecasters down on Earth. A big antenna is waiting for my call. Since I'm a satellite, I send my pictures and notes in a computer language of ones and zeros. Luckily, the antenna speaks my language. Computers connected to the antenna organize my notes and combine all of the pictures and cloud information and translate them into weather maps. They send a version of the maps back up to me. I'll hold on to these for later. Another copy of the maps is split into smaller pieces. This helps the maps move faster from one place to another. The map pieces are then sent for processing before being sent back up in the sky to a communication satellite. From there, the maps are picked up by antennas at the National Weather Service forecast offices in each region. There are more than 100 offices. I also take the maps that I received and send them out to companies that specialize in making the maps more colorful and better for viewing on TVs and computers. The colorful maps and the maps from the forecast offices then go to your local weather forecaster. The forecaster combines the information from these maps with lots of other information, like model forecast data and radar data, to make predictions about the upcoming weather in your area. And that's how I help you find out if bad weather is going to ruin your afternoon plans. You're welcome. Soon it will be my time to shine in outer space. I'm the GOES satellite. That stands for Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite. And the R stands for my order in this series of weather satellites. Like my older siblings before me, I'll do a lot for watching weather, but I'm pretty special because I have a lot of new gadgets. I'm originally from Colorado, but my journey to space has a few stops along the way. I'll be shipped in a very special satellite shipping container to Kennedy Space Center. Moving me around is not easy. I'm over 18 feet wide and weigh 6,000 pounds. And then things get really exciting. I get loaded onto an Atlas V541 launch vehicle. A big rocket! Woo! After Atlas and I blast off together, my compartment separates from the launch vehicle and I continue to climb higher and higher. Then I break away completely and unfurl my solar panel and antenna. After that, I have to use my thrusters to get into just the right position, 22,000 miles above the ground and traveling 1.9 miles per second to keep up with Earth's rotation. And then I can officially start my job along with my fellow GOES sisters, where I take advanced pictures for more accurate weather forecasts, map lightning in real time, and improve the monitoring of the sun's activity. It's going to be so awesome! I can't wait!
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis continues to indicate a slow dissolve going on, especially along the north side of the Seward Peninsula there, but some ice still persisting, and actually not much change from yesterday farther to the north along the western coast or off to the east, and not a lot of change or no significant big changes are expected over the next 4 or 5 days. Southeast coast. On the south coast, northwest winds tomorrow at 15 knots, west 15 on the north coast. Stevens Passage looking at south winds at 10 knots with 2-foot seas. Clarence Strait northwest 15, and Lynn Canal southerlies at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. And for Wednesday, west-southwest breeze at 10 knots on the south coast, seas running 5 to 6 feet, and southerlies at 15 knots for the north coast, 6 to 7-foot seas, south 15, Lynn Canal. And light south winds continue for Stevens Passage, light northwest breeze for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound, southeast winds 15 knots, as well as the western North Gulf Coast and Barren Islands, all looking at southeast wind tomorrow at 15 with 5-foot seas. And the Middleton Island zone, southerlies at 15. Cook Inlet, south winds 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 3-foot seas. And Kamishak Bay, winds will be out of the east, but only 15 knots with 3-foot seas. And a little bit of a pickup in the winds for the western North Gulf Coast and Barren Islands, but staying under small craft advisory levels, both sea height-wise and wind-wise, with sustained winds at 20 knots forecast in both zones there. And the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast at 15, Prince William Sound, east 15, Cook Inlet, southeast at 10 with 3-foot seas, and Kamishak Bay, winds stay light at 15 knots with 4-foot seas. Alaska Peninsula, north to northwest winds 10 to 15 knots, and Bristol Bay, winds will be light out of the north tomorrow with 2-foot seas. Shelikof Strait, northeast winds 15 knots, and the east side of Kodiak, southeast winds at 15. Moving on to Wednesday, 20-knot winds from the south-southeast for Kodiak Island and seas as high as 9 feet. And Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southeast 20 with 9-foot seas. And then Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, we're looking at easterly winds with 10-foot seas and the sustained winds at 20 knots. Otherwise, north side of the Bering Sea Peninsula, kind of variable to north at 10 and southeast 10 for Bristol Bay. Western Aleutians, east-northeast 10 to 15 knots. Central Aleutians, east at 15. Fox Islands, east-southeast 10 to maybe 15 knots with seas running 3 to 6 feet. Outlook for Wednesday. On Alaska Island, northeast 10 to 15, Unmak variable 10 to 15, and Adak and Atka, northwest 10 to 15 knots with really light winds from Adak all the way out to Shimei and Attu from general northerly direction, but only at 10 knots. And up along the southwest coast, Kuskokwim Delta coast, west at 10, Yukon Delta coast, northwest 20, small craft advisories for the St. Lawrence Island area. Behind that front with the cold air coming down, or northerly winds coming down, a little cooler but not that cold. Northerlies at 30 knots and northwest 15 for the Pribilofs. For Wednesday, west 15 for the Pribilofs and south winds 15 south of Nunivak Island and Yukon Delta coast northeast at 15. Northerlies at 20 knots for both St. Matthew and St. Lawrence Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, variable winds at 10 knots. Central coast, either side, looking at basically west winds at 10 knots. Point Lacey on down toward Cape Beaufort. Northerlies at 15, but Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales, we got small craft advisories, northerly winds 25 to as high as 30 knots and seas up to 6 feet. Then for Wednesday, Wales to Cape Thompson, north at 20, and then 10 knot winds from Cape Thompson up the west side there, east at 15 on the central coast, and back down to 10 knots on the east side. For tonight, kind of a Arctic boundary, more or less, pushes southward, originated in the Arctic, so I'll call it an Arctic boundary, and look for periods of rain along that boundary, either side actually, showers extending back up toward the Brooks Range, maybe some clearing on the north slope, drying out. Otherwise, continues wet over the eastern and southeast interior and cloudy with areas of rain and showers at the Panhandle and settle for the North Gulf Coast, and kind of a foggy, drizzly night for Kodiak Island. For tomorrow, Tuesday, again, interior Alaska, not much sun and a lot of clouds and a lot of moisture. Widespread area of precipitation again across the state, all the way from the eastern Arctic coast to the North Gulf Coast, into the Panhandle, back out to the southwest coast, and even Kodiak Island. But the Aleutians dry but covered in low clouds and fog up through the Bering Strait. Outlook for Wednesday, not much change. Chilly, cool, and damp for much of interior Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.